and one of the big beams, the 5 foot by 2 foot beam dropped. Because I go over to where the beam was with the column, and all the guys are standing around. I go like, "What's going on?" And they look up, and I see it, and they go like, "That just fell." I go, "What are you talking about?"
Hi, everybody. It's David Rhodes with Fire Engineering Books, and welcome to another episode of the podcast In the Books. I am joined today by someone that really doesn't need an introduction to my generation. It's the one and only John O'Connell, who goes back a long time with me. But just to get us started, let me tell you a little bit about this fella. John joined the New York City Fire Department, where he served for 26 years, 18 with Rescue Company Number 3. He's a New York State certified instructor for the FDNY Department of Training. He wrote and taught the FDNY's Trench Rescue Program, Collapse Rescue Curriculum, and Void Search Program. He's a member of the Technical Rescue Development Committee for the state of New York, group leader of the Building Collapse and Trench Rescue Development Committee for New York since 1994, and is a principal member of the NFPA Technical Committee on Technical Rescue and chairman of the Structural Collapse section of NFPA 1670 and 2500. He's task force leader for the FEMA USAR New York Task Force 1, member of FEMA USAR Incident Support Team, and a leading shore instructor for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA USNR Structural Specialist Training Program, all the way still doing that. And he is a retired president of Collapse Rescue System. Welcome to the show, my good friend, old buddy, John P. O'Connell. How are
Hi,
you?
Dave. How we doing?
Good, man. Long time coming here with the update of this book.
You're right. I mean, I got so busy, and then I kept putting it off, and it's like, yeah, I finally sat down, like, got my butt in gear, and I need to do this because I should have did it about 6 years ago.
Yep. It was good timing, though. It was right about the time that I came into the position and I started poking him a little bit. And I was like, man, this is the Bible of collapse rescue. And it's been sitting here. I know you got an update. And sure enough, you almost had it finished before I even asked for it.
Yeah, I spent a couple. I redid all the graphics. It's 632 graphics or some silly number, and I spent about 2 years redoing every single one of those graphics. I redid them all myself, and then and well, luckily we waited too because we did update a couple of the shores in the interim,
Yeah.
especially with all the testing we did with the Army Corps. So now this is the latest updates with the Army Corps engineer curriculum. It's the latest update with the fog manuals. It's the latest update that we're teaching with New York State and everybody else.
So, like I said in the intro there, it's like my generation of firefighters all know who John O'Connell is. So, this is a good opportunity to introduce some of the younger guys that may not have been around in your heyday. They may know you from FDIC, from teaching and helping with the HOT program. But just give us a little background when you started with New York and where you worked.
Uh, well, I got onto the. I was a union dock builder in New York City for almost 10 years. I mean, I did shoring as a living, shoring, stabilization, pile driving. I did all that as a living. And my neighbor across the street was a New York City fireman. So he goes, you take the test for the fire department. I go, like, what are you talking about, man? I'm working on blah, blah, blah. So one day I'm painting my house and he comes over and he goes, here. He hands me some paperwork. I go, what's this? It's the application for the test. I filled it out for you, jackass. Take it. Like, okay. So he said, you know what? Let me take this. Because they had 20-year retirement. I mean, the dock building was like, he retired at 65.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going like, you know what? Let me try it.
If you made it that long.
Well, yeah, and I had been working alongside guys that was 62, 63, 64 years old, out in the cold every day, out in the heat in the summer, and it was like, you know what? Let me try this. So I said, you know what? If I don't like it, I could just go back to dock building. But once I got on the job, forget it. You would have had to pull me out of the firehouse with a bulldozer.
Yeah.
And that was I got on a job on April 7th, 1979, long time ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was 6 years before me.
Yeah.
So we're both old.
Well, now everybody I teach now was half of 99% of them weren't even born then.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like holy mackerel.
So yeah,
I mean,
we've been doing FDIC together longer than they've been alive.
oh, that's a true story. Yeah, yeah.
So where all did you work in the city?
Well, I got assigned to an engine company in Canarsie, Engine 257. So I spent a year there, and I had a great time. An awesome captain. And then I went to Ladder 102 in Bedford Stuyvesant. We were doing 46, 4,800 runs a year, no EMS, all fire duty. It was just phenomenal, phenomenal, great place. I was there for 7 years, and then I went to Rescue 3 in the Bronx for the last 18.
So you went to Rescue 3 somewhere mid late 80s.
86, I think it was.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hmm.
So how'd you get into shoring in the fire department? I know your background as a union.
Well, we were doing was I had been dock building and doing the shoring and stuff, and then even I was doing that as a side job also as I was coming up as a fireman, and then I had vast knowledge on all the tools and whatnot, and then I kind of had an interest to like I was in Ladder 102 a long time, and like maybe what's the next step, like going to a rescue. So I looked into like going to Rescue 2, and then like Rescue 3 was going to be the new collapse rescue for New York City because there had been a bunch of collapses. We actually had two in 102.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow, this is right up my alley. And then when I found out about that, uh, when, a good friend of mine in 102, one of his best buddies was a lieutenant in Rescue 3. So he told him about, what I can do and stuff. So I went and saw the captain in Rescue 3. He told him my background and stuff. So basically, it was about 3 months later, I was up in Rescue 3 because they were starting to collapse rescue then.
Who was running their special ops back then?
They really didn't even have a special ops
Didn't
back
have
then.
a command. You just had the units.
Yeah, it wasn't really command. It was like it was like a battalion, and we had a couple of battalion chiefs, and then it was mostly uh, run by. There was a battalion chief that was running one of the old timers, and all the rescue captains were all old timers, all great people. Um, and at that time it was called 13 Bravo, and they only had just started. But then we finally started with that. We started like, all right, we're going to start doing like this training school.
Hmm.
And I had gotten hurt. I had hurt my back pretty hard, and they had put me on light duty. So next thing I know, they go like, you know what, you're going to the Rock, and you're going to start writing up all this the shoring stuff and clap stuff because they were starting to talk about the FEMA system as well.
Hmm.
So I went in, and I was actually we started like a rescue school. So I was the first one that did all the programs for the rescue school, and I mean, I did them. All the graphics were on acetate that you put on the overhead
Yeah.
projector. I mean,
Mhm.
I drew all that stuff by hand and everything. We didn't even have slides to begin
Right.
with. Then we got into the slides, and then I got into with the FEMA program. I was a charter member of New York Task Force One, and then as I started I started to write. Actually, how it was pretty kind of not weird, but it was pretty ironic. So I'm teaching. We were teaching the rescues. We had a couple of rescues. We had a couple of battalion chiefs and a deputy chief at every class because they wanted to get everybody kind of known. Because I mean, the average chief out there couldn't tell you it's between a lace post or a rake shore. They had no idea what
Right.
that even was.
If it
So
wasn't on fire, they weren't concerned with it.
yeah, yeah, and plus they weren't familiar with that type of stuff at the time.
Right.
So I had a friend of mine, Terry Hatton, was John. You need to start writing about this stuff. I go writing. What are you talking about? I failed English in high school. He goes, "I don't worry about that. That's not a problem." We go like, "They'll take care of that." And then Vinny Dunn took one of my classes, and he came up to me and, "Oh, John, that was great. Listen, you gotta start writing on this stuff. You gotta write articles." I go like, "Oh, Chief," I just told him the same thing. He goes, "Don't worry about it." So he put me in touch with Bill Manning at the time, at the editor of Fire Engineering, and he said the same thing. And he goes, "That's easy. You write down the way you talk." And I started laughing. He goes, "What are you laughing about?" I go, "You ain't gonna print the F word like every 12 sentences, you know." And he just started laughing. But I started doing it, and then I did one short a month for like 13, 14 months, and then I did several other articles, uh, on the Trade Center, Oklahoma City, and a bunch of other stuff. And I think I did about 24 articles.
Wow.
Actually, one of them was published in 6 foreign languages.
Wow.
They put it,
Outstanding.
yeah, which is kind of wild.
And I know, I think you said your first article was around 1993, somewhere
Yeah, it
back
was
in
around.
there.
Yeah, that was one of the first articles. It was 93.
Yep. And
And
so
then
that
as we
was
started getting involved then the FEMA system started to come into play.
right.
And I had because what happened was California was doing it their way, which was a little different, a little funkier than the way we had been doing it, and I had been doing it in construction for years. Um, and so we had a meeting. They brought us all together. They brought myself, Dave Hammond, who's like the senior engineer and the senior godfather of the whole program. Oh, what a great guy! Actually, he's like 91 now, and he's getting out of it. So which is kind of sad, but. So it was him and 3 other guys from California. 2 have since passed away. God bless their souls. So we went down to DC for 4 days, and we sat from 8 o'clock in the morning to about 5 o'clock at night for 4 days. I mean, the first day we sat there and we bickered over nomenclature, like what's a wedge, what's a shim, what's a sole plate, what's a sill plate, what's a header, what's a thrust block. I mean, it was. So we finally got most of that straightened out. I mean, most of the time I left there with a freaking headache every night, because things were so different. So we tried to tie everything back together, and then I'd sit there and go like, "All right, here's how we're doing it, and this is how I did it in construction." And then a couple times, Dave, no, you can't. It doesn't work that. You have to do it this way. I go, Dave, yeah, it does. I had brought a loose leaf book with all photos of stuff that I had done in the fire department as well as in construction. And I go, oh, yeah, no, yeah, here's how that works. It works right here. Oh, okay. So we
So
kind
the
of got everything together. So it took us about 4 days to get that all together. And it was pretty wild, of course. And of course, then we're all meeting at the bar, except for Dave, the other, myself and the other guys. We're all meeting at the bar every night, and I'm drawing Shores on napkins and whatnot. And Mike McGraw, God rest his soul, he told me before he passed away about 5 years ago, he goes, I still have those napkins in my office.
That's awesome. Did
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of good stuff have come on napkins in the bar,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
FDIC stuff. A lot of new products, innovation, and ideas.
Oh,
So
that's
were there shores a whole lot different than what you were doing already,
uh,
or was it just nomenclature?
no, some of them were different, and they were spending. Some of it was like a little too difficult. It was like it was too much work. It could have been done with less work, and then I would show them like, this is what we got, and we'd streamlined it and whatnot, and they were huge into gusset plates, which the construction industry is not.
Right.
And it was like okay, so we had it came up with some compromises, and then and at that point, then I sat there and I did a lot of research on this. I actually went to like, all right, where did all this stuff come from? And the majority of it came from England's Civil Defense Manual, dated like 1943.
Hmm.
And I actually got a hold of a copy of it. It wasn't even in the New York Public Library. It was in the annex for the New York Public Library. And I saw the stuff. So then I took it and I updated it to what the 20th century stuff, to our stuff. And then we worked from it for there, and we updated it, and we continued on with it, and we did the famous stuff. And then the real updates came when the Army Corps and engineers got involved, and they wanted X amount of nails and this and X amount of nails and that, which is fine. And
Right.
then when we started the testing, that's when it really came out that what worked well, what didn't, and stuff. So we adjusted a few things, changed a few things, added some stuff, and then like the T-shirt, like the engineers that just were not happy with the single post T-shirt. So I said, "What's the problem, Dave?" He goes, "Like, well, it's one post." Like, yeah, I know that it's not real stable. He goes, "Well, I said, "Okay."
Make
So I
two
was
posts.
sitting there one time. I was doing a shoring class in Setauket with Joey DiBernardo's fire department. God rest his soul. And I sat there like I'm looking and looking. Okay, how can we improve on this? And I'm going like, you know what? Why don't we make it a 2-post T-shirt? So I turned around and figured some stuff out. Put the 2 posts together, got them at 2 feet apart, designed a gusset plate for them. So I had those guys put it all up, and then it worked well. And then I presented it to the guys, and they liked it, and Now a lot of people, that's all they're putting up is a 2-post raker, which is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we adjusted some things. We came up with the plywood lace posts, and we came up with some other ideas for some stuff. And the most recent one was I came up with the 3-post raker system, where it's actually a 3 foot by 4 foot with a 3-post instead of just a 2-post. So it's a 6-post shore altogether, and that held up to 168,000 pounds, which the best we ever had on a lace post holder was like 145. So this is way strong. I mean, it is one more piece of wood, but
Right.
it's just another item in our arsenal now that's out there.
Yep.
So we pretty much and we test stuff pretty much almost every year now, and have been, and we adjusted a few things, and it's
So
good.
pretty good working relationship between like the Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and NFPA. Are you sort of the person that kind of is in all of those circles?
Well, originally, one of the reasons I got involved with the Corps was because I was the lead shoring guy for FEMA.
Mm-hmm.
Lead shoring instructor, lead guy doing all the classes, lead guy making up the classes for them for the SCT program at the time. And then I got involved, and David was involved with the Corps, and then actually 2 of the Corps guys I met and worked with at Oklahoma City.
Right.
And they knew me from Oklahoma City, and then they put me in. Mike Tamalo was the IST leader at night, and he put me in charge of all the shoring that was going in.
So how'd you end up? I think you've told me this before, but that was like one of the biggest incidents early on in the shoring journey. How'd you end up out there, and what all did you do?
Yeah. Well, they deployed New York, and at the time I was out in California at the time at a conference, and then the IST leader, Mark Iladucci, was the IST leader, and I'm going like, holy shit! It's like he goes, "You get out there, and I'll put you to work," So
we're talking about the Oklahoma City bombing the Alfred Murrah building.
Right.
For those of you who weren't born when that happened.
So when I called New York, I go like, well, they're leaving and everything. So I actually beat New York in there. And then when I went into the IST, Giladucci goes, all right, you go over and you work at night with Tamalo. Like, okay. And then as we first started to do some of the shoring right off the bat, I mean, some of the guys, they weren't doing it the right way and it wasn't in the right spot. So, what the Tamalo was like, Mike, they're not doing, this stuff's got to be fixed. And he goes, all right, you got it. You're in charge of the shoring. You're the shoring officer for the site. Okay. So any shoring that went up, I went and checked on, developed. I worked with all the engineers, and we decided where the shores were going to go and which one was going to go up. And then my job was to make sure they did it all right. So I did. I walked around that building quite a few times.
You remember how many shores you guys built?
I don't remember exactly, but I still have the plot plans, the plot drawings for it. And on the drawings of the building, I have every single shore that we put in marked on those drawings. And I have a book. And I wrote down every shore that was in the book. And I wrote down when it was done and who did it. And I still have those books. But there were dozens and dozens and dozens of shores put up.
What were you primarily putting in? Like lace posts?
Vertical shores, lace posts. We did a lot of 2-post shores. We did a whole bunch of 6x6 shoring, like down on the first level, and then 4x4 shoring up in the other level. And then we had that section they called the forest. It was all 2-post verticals. What happened was, and it was about 4:00 in the morning or so. I went downstairs. There was a team from Virginia down there. Good group of guys. I mean, I knew them all pretty much from training and working with them. So I was down there looking at putzing away, doing their thing. And then so I go back upstairs, and I was talking with Tamla about something. One of their guys comes running up. He goes, John, you got to come downstairs right now. Like, what's up? This beam just broke. You got to come downstairs. I'm going like, I look at Tamla. We might have a problem. He goes, all right, go down there. So I go running down there with them. and one of the big beams, the 5 foot by 2 foot beam, dropped. Because I go over to where the beam was with the column, and all the guys are standing around. I go like, "What's going on?" And I look up and I see it, and they go like, "That just fell." I go, "What are you talking about?" Well, they had a guy, the videographer was going around and was taking videos of everything. So he took videos of everything, and then he came back, I guess maybe 35, 40 minutes later, and he's taking more videos. And then he starts looking at what he had, and he's looking and he's looking and looking. Then he goes over, "Hey, listen, you know, the beam had dropped about 2 feet. It broke off." Now I'm sitting there and I'm going like, and I knew the rescue team manager and stuff like, "You guys have been here the whole time?" "Yeah, we've been here the whole time." "You didn't hear that bust?" "Nope." I'm like, "You what?" So like, holy crap. So at that point, it was either like we abandoned the whole building or like we'll fix it. And I wasn't abandoning anything. I said, "No, we're going to fix this." So I sat there, and their two engineers were there, and then New York engineer from New York came over, and I'm going, like, "What do you want to do?" I go, "All right, well, let's put up 6 by 6, 2 posts." It was like 25 feet long. We'll put 5 in the main, keep it spacing apart. So one of the engineers from Virginia, did the math on what the beam weighs and how much we were going to support. He goes, "John, you only need 4. Perfect. All right, so let's go to town. We'll put one on both ends, 2 in the middle, and we'll go to town." And then the dice, and then so that like the rescue team manager and stuff, like, "What do you need?" And I go, "We need this many 6 bys, this many 2 by 6s, this many 6 bys." "Okay." And I mean, I didn't turn around. I tell you, it was about 7 minutes later, everything was sitting there.
Hmm.
All right, go to town. We did all the measuring, did all the cutting. We put the stuff together, laced it all together, and it held up the entire mission. And this was day 2, the morning of day 2.
Hmm.
So
How
it held up.
much how
Held up.
much of how much tieback and work and stuff did you guys have to do? Because I know there was like just tons of stuff hanging. Did you guys have to like work and tie back a lot of that stuff, like with wire
No,
rope?
we did very little of that. They wound up tying back one of the slabs that was hanging a little bit, but we didn't do a lot below. We worked around stuff. Um,
So they were able to search under the
right.
cover of the floor.
Yeah. And then we were able to, like, a lot of slabs that were laying, like, down on an angle, we were luckily able to crib up
Mhm.
and take the weight off of it that way.
So how long of an operation was that?
Well, I was there for the 2. I was there for 14 days before I went home, but we were doing shoring almost up to the end. Like
Wow.
the forest, they took them about I'd say about an hour and 20 minutes, and it was up and ready to go, and it stayed up the entire 14 days. Even when
Mhm.
they blew the building up, the whole building came down, and when they excavated everything, that forest section was still standing.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
held up
Seen that happen before.
tons and tons more than they anticipated.
Yep.
But,
So I know after that you ended up getting sent to Puerto Rico for a gas explosion and did a lot of shoring there. What was going on there?
well, we were actually in Washington D.C. We were teaching an SCT class, and then a big store and mall section, like a 5-story building, had there was a shoe store in the basement, and it had blown up. A gas explosion blew it up, so it lifted the first floor up, completely demolished part of the second floor, dropped it in, and killed numerous people. So they got a call from Puerto Rico, for help with the collapse, and they sent they sent they sent Florida teams out there because a lot of guys spoke Spanish and whatnot, so they sent them right there. And then while we were at the class, they turned around and, like, they got some pitches, and I go like, "You got to start shoring this thing up. This is blah 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 blah." And then Dave Hammer was there. They go like, "So okay." So they sent me and Dave right from the class in D.C. to Puerto Rico to work with the ISD command. And then Dave and I did, for several days. Dave was like the head engineer for it, and I just ran all the shoring. Had him shore up to different places with different things and stuff. And we
Was that
actually used a crane. We uh, we used a cable tie system. We cabled off of two sections of beam that were attached to a column that was, compromised, and we used a crane to take the load on it and literally hold those floors up. It was pretty neat doing that.
How long of an operation was that one?
It was quite. It was 7-8 days.
Hmm.
You know, as far as I remember, I mean, it was at least a week. But we did some nifty shoring there. And then we got out they got once they got all the victims out, then it was like, okay, like, we're done type of thing. So
Right. And then obviously you had a big role at the World Trade Center. I know there wasn't a whole lot of shoring to do and all, but you had a pretty big role for several months there.
well, I was there like almost 5 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I got there the morning of the first day, obviously, and I was there. I mean, I didn't get home until Sunday night. The doc sent me home like Sunday night. He goes, "Now you're going home for like." So I went home for like about 8 hours and came back, and then I mean, I didn't see I didn't see my kids until Thanksgiving was the first time I saw my kids,
Hmm.
and then I went back, and then I wound up. Actually, I got deployed with FEMA to the Olympics in January in Salt Lake City. I was there for a couple of days, and then I had been training with the Marine Corps, for about 9 years. And I got a phone call from the guy that's doing the Marine Corps training. He goes, "Hey, John, listen, we need you to come to the Middle East." I go like, "Gunny," I'm like, I'm jammed up here." He goes, "John, no, you don't get it. If I got to call your chief of department or your fire commissioner and tell him you're coming to the Middle East, you're coming." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I mean, this isn't enough for discussion, really." So I was there with Chief Crothers. I go like, "You know what? Here, why don't you talk to Chief Crothers?" So he gets on the phone with Crothers, and Carruthers goes, "Okay, no problem." He goes, "All right, you just let me know when you come back."
Hmm.
So I went to the Middle East, and I took a couple guys with me, and we taught a rescue platoon section that they had in the Middle East, and it was comprised of Marines and sailors and whatnot, and we taught them, all kinds of shoring and rescue stuff. And I was there for a couple of weeks, and then I came back to the trade center till like after like just about Patty's Day.
Wow.
And, my job was I was underneath underground doing all the searching and stuff, and then I was also in charge of like any void searching and stuff like that. I mean, one of the problems the Chiefs have with it, we got all these guys running all over the place, and they're going to get themselves freaking killed doing this stuff. So, like, I was the first guy in the basket on top of the South Tower. I was the first guy in the basket on top of the North Tower. With a group, and we did this and did that, and worked that way. And I mean, I was there like 18 hours a day, for a couple of weeks. I mean, I slept in my clothes for like a solid week.
Mhm.
I didn't even get out of my boots, my fire boots, till like Saturday. My feet were all blistered and everything.
Hmm.
And
Talk a little bit about the mission you guys got to go and find the gold down in the bottom of the trade center.
yeah, well, that was it. And this it'd been going on for a
Yeah.
while at that point. And I had Jimmy Ellison, God rest his soul, he passed away, and Jack Murphy. They were they got to be liaisons to some business type stuff in the city with corporations and whatnot. Like, okay, so they came up to me one morning, and I think I was walking back off the North Tower. So, John, you got to come to this meeting with us. I go, "What are you talking about? I ain't going to no meeting." What is this crap? No, you got to come to this meeting. You have to be there. Like, what? Yeah, no, you got to come to this meeting. Like, okay. He goes like, we can't tell you exactly what it is, but you got to come. Well, why the F should I go to this meeting if I can't? No, just go. Just go. Like, okay, no, it's important. Okay. All right. So they pick me up. We go to this meeting in Manhattan, and we're at some big high end security outfit. So they're there. A couple other people there. Some bank people come in, and they're all whispering to each other. And then I'm there, and then a chief in the Port Authority PD is there. So I will look at each. So I started talking to him. We go like, he goes, what are we doing here? I go like, I have no idea. You're gonna have that stuff. Like, okay, so they sat us down. I'm like, okay, so now Wells Fargo is like, okay, uh, well, I'll let you guys know. All right, and we had to sign documents. You couldn't tell anybody about the meeting and all that stuff. And I go, yeah, okay, fine, let's go. And I'm going like, I ain't got all day for this. Can you get to the point here? Like, okay. Um, there's it's called it's the Bank of Nova Scotia. It's under Building 5. Okay. There's a vault down there in the basement section. Right. It's got about $500 billion worth of gold and silver. Like what? I mean, the chief and the Port Authority cops almost fell over. What? He goes, yeah. It goes, how come we know nothing about it? He goes, well, that's kind of was the idea.
The point. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the point. And then it was like, and I had been up and down that road, and it was a little red door there. That was it. And I've been up and down that road, and like, in the back, and it was partially collapsing. I know what you're talking about. I said, we can barely get to that door. But, okay. I mean, nothing. No sign, no nothing, just a red door. Okay. Yeah. He goes, we have to, we got to get obviously get the gold out of it. But they were having such a hard time to get somebody that would hold the gold for them.
Right. So much of it.
Yeah, because there was so much of it. So then they finally got somebody in the Brooklyn Navy Yard said, all right, you can take it as long as you do your round the clock thing, and it's your whole schmear. And then they could only take out like $1.5 million worth of gold out of in each truck, because that's all the trucks were, I think, insured for or something like that. So they ran trucks like 24/7 for like 3 days to get them all out of there. And it was like, and the guys, we're going gold. He goes like, don't worry, you can't fence gold. He said, there was silver upstairs, like $100 million in silver upstairs or some silly number. And he goes like, you can take all you want. We don't care. Yeah, okay. And like the gold bars were like, they weighed about, I'd say about 25, 28 pounds each, or maybe a little bit more. And he goes like, it's not like you can put it in your pocket and walk away.
So there was 500 billion, and you can confirm for everybody listening that they found all 499 billion, 500 million, 99.
Yeah. Yeah. It was something like five. I mean, I could be off.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know it was a ton. And I think we've got the picture of you standing in front of that.
Right. Yeah. And it was in a basement. It was in a basement. And along the back wall of the basement were cages. And there were countries' names on the cages.
Yeah.
And they were pallets of gold. And he goes, yeah, that's their gold reserve. Like, holy mackerel. What happened to Fort Knox and stuff?
Yeah. It's like right out of the movies.
Yeah. And they even vacuumed up, after we were all done with everything, they even vacuumed the floor up. Vacuumed all the gold off the floor. That was probably worth, $10,000. Was
any of it damaged from the collapse?
No, well, what happened as we first got in there, because that was a pretty funny story in itself too. So it's myself. I'm there, and I got the meters with me, and I got half a dozen Port Authority ESU cops. They all got, ARs. They're all loaded, full ammo, the whole schmear. We all got masks on and whatnot, and I had the meters and stuff like that. So we get to that red door. Now there's a guy that's the employee from the bank, and he's got the combo for the door. Like, okay, like, all right, so we're going up there, and of course the cops are behind me. They're loading up, and they're charging their weapons, and this guy's shaking like a leaf.
Trying to get the code.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're breaking the shot. It's like, hey, remember that Bruce Willis movie when all those guys were down in the basement and stuff? So yeah, so he's trying to do the combo, and he couldn't get it. So it's like the third time I go, listen, you know what? Give me it. I'll do it. Give me one more try. So he tries. He got the door open. Now we're laughing and giggling. And so we go in, and I put them. Everything was fine. It was there was water all over the place. Water had gotten in there.
Yeah.
But we were on the first floor, and it was all the silver and stuff, and there was no lights there, so all our flashlights, everything was reflected. And then we walked down the stairs into the basement where the gold was, and it was, as you shine the flashlights, it was, oh my Lord in heaven, like, this is not real.
It's like Indiana Jones.
This is real.
Yeah.
So we took a
That's
couple
amazing.
pictures, and I got to get pictures of this. We took a couple pictures,
Yeah.
stuff, and then they took it all out of there. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was a quite the career for sure.
Yeah.
So just talk a little bit about your history with the Corps, and you talked about how you got involved with them, but you're still involved with the
That's
engineers,
correct.
right?
I'm
Yeah.
still a lead rescue guide, lead shoring instructor. It's my 19th year.
And so, what
Um,
all does that entail? You teach all of their classes and
yeah,
help with their curriculum.
we do two classes a year. In the spring and the fall, we do an engineer class. It's a structure specialist class one, and
Hmm.
structure specialist class two is the advanced version. So we bring any FEMA engineer or Army Corps engineer that's getting involved in the rescue scenario comes and takes these 8-day classes. So we get all the engineers come in the system, and 99% of engineers don't do anything with shoring.
Right.
99%. They don't know anything about shoring. And construction shoring and rescue shoring is it's just different. You know,
Right.
we're we're really concerned about secondary collapse potential and other stuff like that they're really not worried about with the regular shoring.
Yeah. So
So
they're building stuff for stabilization and all of whether it's a dirt bank or something inside a building. It's just typical like retention type stuff. Is
yeah,
that what they're mostly doing?
yeah, and our stuff we have to worry about secondary
Yeah.
loading and vibration loading and stuff. So it's a little bit more complicated. So I teach them all how to do all the shoring, how to do it right, where it's got to go, and I teach them on the. We also do a couple classes on rescue, how to sit there and, you know, you're going to be in a rescue mode, and we will give them classes like we'll give them 6 or 7 slides of a building, and all right, you got 5 minutes to figure out the game plan. Well, I don't have enough info. You're right, 100% right. Guess what? This is what you got, and this is what you're working at,
Yeah.
and
That's awesome.
and it's like, well, it's too unsafe to go in there. I used to break their chest. Really, you went to school for what 4 or 5 years to tell me that? I go, my 12-year-old twins can tell me that. It doesn't work. With dude, we're going in there. You gotta you gotta come up with an idea for making it safer for us. So, and the
So with
classes are great, and a lot of good people have come through, and so we get them on board with our stuff. You know,
right.
and then we came up with the fog manual and the shoring operations guide because there's so much stuff, especially with nail patterns and cleat sizes and all kinds of stuff. Nobody can know everything.
Right. Yep.
So we came up with those books and same thing. And I did all the PowerPoint stuff. I started the PowerPoint stuff with the FEMA classes, and then I did the shores, and then I did it for New York State. I did them for FDNY, and then I got involved in doing the PowerPoints for the Corps as well. So it's like 90% of the PowerPoints, the shoring PowerPoints that are in the fog are mine that I've done. You know, and then
Outstanding.
I'm still doing them.
Right. Still updating and making sure they're good. So I know I spent a lot of time with you back in the, I guess, late '90s and through the 2000s when you had collapse rescue systems. When'd you get that going?
Um, I got that going in the late '90s.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, I can do this, and I had a bunch of guys that I was with that were really good. And we can go around and start teaching this stuff. Make a few bucks, and then the next thing I know, because what happens was like when I started with the Marine Corps, I mean they sent me to the Middle East years before that.
Hmm.
Uh, we did a week in the Middle East years before the Trade Center.
Hmm.
So then after the Trade Center, obviously the rescue became a big mode thing, and I
Right.
wound up.
A lot of grant money available for training and
Oh, sure, all over the
yeah.
place, and,
Yeah.
and other countries got involved. I mean, I wound up in Japan twice. I was in China twice, working with the Chinese fire department. I was in England, Germany. I was in 4 countries in the Middle East. I was in the Middle East 24 times.
Mm,
But after I retired and after the Trade Center, 24 times I was in the Middle East
mm.
training different teams. So it was
So
pretty wild. I mean, and I mean, there's places I went to that I would never ever have gone to if I didn't become like a rescue fireman type thing.
Right, right. So I know, I guess it was probably 2004, 2005, you actually uh, taught my structural collapse technician class in Atlanta. We brought you guys in
Mhm.
probably 7 or 8 times over the course of the years. That's when I was doing the special ops. So you actually taught that, and one of the reasons that we used you guys of obviously is I knew your history with FDIC and the way you did the collapse training, but the main thing was that when you took a class from collapse rescue system, you actually collapsed a building. It wasn't building shores in a parking lot or in a square burn building or whatever. Like, that was part of your deal. Like, to come teach, you had to find a building for us to knock down, and that was a process in itself that took a couple of days of prep work and all. But what an experience that you actually get to work. It's basically like acquired structure training for doing live fire. It's a big difference than just doing it in a static building.
Well, it's a world of difference, and that's one of the things that I did. Though, it's like, yeah, you got to get us a vacant building, and I'd send 3 or 4 of the guys out, and they'd spend a couple days prepping it, and then we'd knock
Mm-hmm.
it down the right way, hopefully, and then we had you in there, like, okay, all the stuff we taught you, that all that square stuff, forget that. All this, anything that's square in here, keep going. I don't need to be
Mm-hmm.
short. Well, you
Right.
didn't. I know. Yes. All right. That's why we're here. So that's the problem with the system the way it is now. With 2 days of training, uh, especially in the FEMA system, they come in and take 2 days of training, and like, yeah, some of the props are on an angle a little bit, but they're all concrete buildings and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Didn't we do eight? Wasn't it an 80-hour program?
Oh yeah, we did two
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
all those programs for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Just too much info. You
Yeah.
know, to jam it into a week. And
So how many states and different countries you think you guys covered
I
during
was
that
looking at
time?
that yesterday. I was in like 10 different countries, um, and it was about 35 states. Maybe we did stuff
Yeah.
in.
And probably multiple times.
Oh yes, no, yeah. It was rare we did one class. We always came back and did more than one class.
Yeah.
You know?
Good
And then it
stuff.
got to
That
the
was
point where like all my guys that I was with, they all retired. They all got old. They all got hurt, like I did. Uh, you know, it's like crap. So it's like I wound up. All right, you know what? Okay. So I stepped back. I stepped back from that teaching part. I mean, I still do the core, and I still teach for New York State,
yeah.
but I kind of stepped back from all the other stuff.
Well, and a lot of the money for that type of training dried up, unfortunately, too, as we got distance from the trade center. All those teams that stood up for state teams, and they got that initial surge of money, and then just like everything else, it kind of went off the radar, and then it was up to the local jurisdictions to hold it together. So that's been a problem with all technical rescue forever. You always get that initial kick in, and then it's hard to maintain it.
Well, that's the trouble with tech rescue. It doesn't matter if it's rope or collapse or something like that. You need a lot of equipment. You need legitimate spaces, and it's time consuming.
Yeah,
And
it's
if you don't
expensive.
do it on a regular basis, you're not going to be
Lit-
any good at all.
Yeah.
That's
So, what I know you wrote the first edition of the book somewhere around 2003. Um, why do you think the fire service, the industry, needed this book?
well. As I've been going around the country and doing different teaching, and even when we got together, and even with the FEMA system, guys would come in. Oh yeah, I know how to do shoring, and they come in and they didn't know shit. you know?
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, no, this is we do it this way because of. We don't do it your way because you had so many guys teaching it and took classes in it that never ever been to a real building collapse in their life.
Right.
So the stuff they did worked in a square building. I said, yeah, but that doesn't work for real.
And is that kind of
So
like fighting fire in a Connex box versus
yeah,
a
pretty
real
much.
structure?
Yeah, yeah. It's like,
A lot of
yeah, it's like
similarity.
like, dude, this is not real firefighting. This is not the real thing.
Right.
So I said, you know what? Let me come up with the book. Because, well, that was another thing too. Was like everybody was doing the 2 day FEMA. When we first developed the FEMA class, the shoring classes and stuff, and the SCT class at the time they call it, they changed it. They came to me like, how many days you need for shoring? I said 4 days. And I go, we can't give you 4 days. The class will be like 3 weeks long. You asked me, I told you it's 4 days. And they're like, well, you can only have two. I go, you got to be kidding. Well, supposedly, our guys already know how to do shoring. Yeah, okay. So the whole idea of the 2 day class was to get everybody on the same page. And of course, we did the first couple of classes, and 90% of them didn't know a thing.
Right.
Like, okay. So then it's like, okay, there's the 2 day shoring classes. Then when you said all that money opened up and everything, people would be given here's an 80-hour class. They take a guy that couldn't spell rescue shoring, and 2 weeks later, all right, put a rake ashore up against the wall. And it was like, you're lucky if they could do it after doing it like 4 times. And they had no idea where to put it or whatever, or how it was supposed to be done right. And it was like, okay. So I said, no, we need to come up with the book. So I started writing a book. And I mean, I said, this is the number of nails you use. This is why we use them. This is where they go. This is the cleat. This is how the nails go in. It's basically shoring for dummies.
Right.
But so it's a step-by-step book. And it took me a long time to write it. And
yeah, it's definitely an unbelievable. It's a resource, not just to train with, but I mean, you keep that on the rig with you and flip through. If you didn't, obviously you did the fog manuals and all too, and that's a quick way to do it. But I mean, this is a go-to manual. This is the shoring manual. There's not another one out there that I know of.
Yeah. When I first went to fire engineering with the book, they were like, well, it's like, well, we're going to have to check and see what other types of books are out there. And I told them,
Who are you going to check with?
I said, listen, this is the reason I'm writing the book. There is no book. This is it. And they go back. Oh, I'm having trouble. We can't find anything that you get. What did I just tell you a month ago? There is no book. This is it. It's the only book. Why do you think I'm writing? I'm not rewriting somebody's engine, fire engine book.
Right.
It's like, no, this is it.
What changes have you seen over the years in shoring techniques and construction? Has there been a lot of changes, or is it primarily the same as it was in the original?
The principles are the same. Well, we changed a few things when we found out testing everything. Like we changed the rake ashore cleat. Used to be 17 nails on a 2x4. Mm-hmm. And we found out with testing it didn't have to be that many. So we made it 14 nails. So number one, it's less nails that you're putting in, and you're not splitting the wood. Right. And so we had a couple like small changes like that, and then some changes to the bracing and stuff because it worked out better. Right. And then we developed a couple things like with the lace posts. Instead of using all 2x6s, you can use plywood. When you start making the 16 footers, that's a heck of a lot of lumber, and it's pretty big and pretty heavy. Mm-hmm. And the plywood, on the larger one, the plywood goes up quicker and it weighs less. Like if you're going to do a lace post that's 8 feet high, you might as well do the 2x4s. It's just as easy.
Yep.
But when you go higher than that, you're better off with the plywood lace posts. And we tested that. That's all fine. All fine and dandy.
So all of those changes pretty much came from the testing.
Yes. Yeah. All the changes we did pretty much all came from the testing.
So I remember, if you remember, I can't remember what year it was, but you remember my parking deck collapse.
Oh, sure.
In Atlanta. And of course I was in charge of the shoring and everything on that operations. And I remember calling you. We had a structural engineer there, and he helped us. I went right by the book doing the calculations, and we built 40 6x6 lace posts, like with 6x6 lumber. Oh, wow. And I remember talking to you, you're like, oh man, y'all way overdid it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But in the book, if you did the numbers on the book, with the engineer, but it was like, that was based on theory. And I'll tell you what, it's not easy to get that much 6x6 lumber.
Well, let's see that's another thing. And like when we do the shoring training with the USAR guys, we get them a couple of shoring problems, and I'm sitting there walking by one group, like, oh, let's just get 6x. What's the big deal? Well, I went crazy. What's the
Yeah.
big deal? First off, they're not easy to get. Number two, and they weigh twice, 2.5 times
It's
as much.
hard as hell to build them
I
out
tell you what,
there.
you want to do that? I'm going to have you carrying the 6x over to the guys.
Yeah.
And said, then I need chainsaws to cut them. You can't cut them with regular saws.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? Use 4x4s. They're way easier to get. They go up 3 times as fast. And
Yep.
guess what? If you don't think one's enough, what do? Put in another
But
one.
another one. Yeah.
Put another one in. You put
Yep,
in
that
2
was
of
a
those
lesson
lace
learned.
posts by 4x4s. It'll be easier than one 6x.
Yeah.
Plus, it's easier to get the material. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, rookie mistake again. A lot of training, but not a lot of collapse experience. That was the first big one. Other than residential structures, tornadoes and stuff. That was truly the first big
Yeah.
commercial type deal that we had. I think we ended up removing 78 cars out of that 5-story parking deck.
Yeah.
So, all right, good stuff. What are some of the common mistakes that you see with shoring operations, other than a young Chief Rhodes using 6x6?
A lot of common mistakes. I mean, the guys get taught how to do this stuff, but when they get into stuff like parking garages and whatnot, they have a tendency. They put stuff up. They overdo it a little bit. They gusset plate the crap out of everything, which they don't have to do any of that. You only need gusset plates down by the wedges, and they get crazy overboard doing too much. And meanwhile, dude, you could have put in 2 more shores while you're sitting there playing with this, putting this extra crap on. It doesn't do anything, And the biggest issue they have is they're not putting the stuff in the right spot because they don't have the technical background on how the load's going.
Right.
That's really what you need. So you put them in the right spot. And, one thing they do, like all the training they do, wherever they're doing the training, especially when they're doing using their burn buildings and other buildings that they own, they're not anchoring the shores into anything because they can't drill holes into their buildings.
Right.
So now you got to do these things. Oh, we put this up. It's great. It's like, okay, yeah, all right. How did you anchor it to the top of the slab? What do you mean? Okay. Well, if that bounced a little bit or vibrated, if something come down, what's holding it from sliding?
We wedged it in real good.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's like, okay, no, you got to anchor these, dude.
Yep.
So you'll see stuff like that, and they'll over nail it a little bit, and and sometimes they have a tendency to overdo things. Guys think that the more wood and stuff they put on it, the better it's going to hold up. That's not true.
That reminds me of the old saying in rope. Remember, they would say, if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot.
But yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of the thing. Yeah.
So do you have a favorite shore that once you build it, you kind of stand back and go, man, that's like freaking a piece of art right there?
There you go. Yeah. Well, a lot of shoring that we did, we try to keep it simple. Like even when I did the double T shore, I tried to keep it simple. I made the one gusset plate up top, just change the side, get the right number of nails in it, blah blah blah. So that goes up good. But like you said, like the lace post is probably one of the most complicated.
Yeah,
it's one of the complicated. The most complicated one we're going to do is a slow floor shore.
Yeah,
and a lot of guys have problems with that. I mean, a lot. But if you can put up one of those, like I've put up, not 2 post, like 3 post, slow floor shores that were like 12 feet long,
right.
and tie them together with the angles, and both angles are a little different, and I've done it where we cut the angle in the 4x4 in 2 different directions, which was not easy, and got that up. And like, man, this is what a home run this is. This is fine carpentry, this type of stuff.
Yeah,
99% of the guys can't do that.
I love seeing
like you said, the lace post. You put that up, and when you put it up right and everything looks good, oh man, I'm going to stand next to this and take pictures.
Yeah, and you can bail in there if you need to.
That's
the
it.
thing. I think I liked it because it just reminds me of like the old old coal mine movies and just stuff where you saw all the shoring and stuff down. There's just something kind of nostalgic about it. If you do it right, if you got your angles good and your braces are all matching, it's almost like, you're a carpenter and you just built something
That's
that's
nice.
massive and awesome right there.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, obviously we can't cover everything in the book, but let's just talk a little bit about the shoring team, like how the shoring team functions, how many people you need, and what the positions are, and what they do. I think if somebody's like just getting into it, I think that's an important part. I mean, this is not a 1 or 2 person operation here.
No, what we did is we had 5-man squads to start with, so we kept, we'll keep it with the 5-man squad, all right? Because I mean, the officer, 4 firemen. I mean, that's a good command structure type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like, and believe it or not, once you're inside doing shoring, after like 3 guys, you don't need much more.
Start getting in the way. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you need guys to bring lumber in and whatnot and set stuff up and clear things out of the way. But to install a shore, you don't really need more than 2 or 3 guys. So we had the officer that was in charge, and then you would have the layout guy. Uh, he you'd have what we did is we set it up into the shoring team and a cutting team. So there'd be a cutting station outside where you had the cutting fireman, the layout fireman, and then you'd have a runner coming back and forth. Then inside, you'd have the guy that's doing all the measuring inside, and then there'd be a fireman assisting him with the measuring and then installing the shoring. So the measuring firefighter, we used to put on a separate tactical radio frequency with the cutting shore firefighter outside. Because when you were at a big collapse, you had crap going on, you know how busy the radio got.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what we would do is we put them on a secondary tactical channel. All right, you guys talk to each other. And then we made sure it's like, okay, they were taught everything you did in inches. You measured everything in inches. So there was no mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So I need piece 12.441. It's like, no, you tell him exactly how many inches you want. Then he'll cut it. And then like if you're inside measuring and you got to deduct for wedges and stuff like that, you do all that stuff inside. You don't sit there and go like, yeah, I got an opening, an 8-foot tree, and we're going to use wedges and stuff. Give me a piece of fits. That's BS.
Yeah.
You
Make
tell
it
him
simple.
exactly how long you want your piece, and he'll
Mm-hmm.
give it to you within a quarter of an inch. Here you go. This is what
Yep.
you asked for. This is what you get. If it don't fit, it's your fault, not mine.
Right.
So, I mean, so they're taught that to do that right measurements, and they're taught, you got to leave X amount of space for the wedges, right? Inch. You're using 1.5 inch wedges. You leave an 1.5 inch space for wedges. You don't leave an inch. You don't leave 2 inches. You leave an 1.5 inch. This way it fits properly.
Yep.
And then the measuring guy and the installing guy, they would sit there and put the shores together, with the officer's help, or you could always use other people to help. And then the cutting and layout guys would work together and give everything to the runner, and off they would go. Now, if you're doing multiple shores, you can have multiple shoring teams. You have 3 or 4 shoring teams, and you only need like one cutting team. So what we do is we'll have 2 guys measuring, 2 guys cutting, and then runners back and forth. So
It's easy to get confused on
sure.
who's calling what, and I mean it is definitely a lesson in organization because again, in your training, a lot of time you're doing something in a parking lot or a training yard. Your cut table is within. You can turn and go, hey, give me so and so. But when you're up in a building somewhere and the lumber's down on the ground and the cut team's down on the ground, that just training in that communication is just as important as building the shore.
Yeah, you got 2 teams inside. One's on the first floor, one's on the second floor. Oh yeah, we need someone. I'm like, okay, and we tell the cutting team, it's like, okay, you write down the number, what the piece is, what team it's going to,
Yeah.
and then like, you know what, you need to have a runner from your group upstairs come down because
Same guy. Yeah.
here's your pile. Okay, team 1, here's your pile. Team 2, here's your pile. Don't come
Yep.
over. Where's my 48-inch piece? There's your pile. You pick it out of your pile. Don't be taking anybody else's lumber.
Yep.
And
So we were talking about we're talking about you came up with a new shore
yeah.
recently. How did that come to be?
Well, what we were doing is actually coming up like Dave Hammond. It's like we've tested rake shores 20 something times, lace posts dozens of times and stuff. It's like, okay, let's try and, let's think outside the box. Let's think of some stuff that we can do. So he's like, so Dave came up with a 4-post 4x4 short. It's like a big bulk teep short type thing, and then he's got it all plywood on the side with there's like 550 nails on this thing. Dave, there's just too many nails on this. Well, like, okay, but that's an option. And then it's like, okay, let's see what we're gonna do. I said, you know what, I'm gonna, because I was actually doing the same thing. We were inside it was a half concrete, half wood type building with New York
Mhm.
State, and we were doing like an advanced shoring class type thing. And I'm going like, you know what? All right, I'm going to do an advanced class. All right, let's try this. Let me try this. So I go like, you know what? So we do the 2-post. Let's make it a 3-post. So instead of 2-foot, I made it 3-foot apart. And I sat and figured out, following the 8-nail pattern all the way across, figured out the exact nails. Wound up being 23 nails. And okay, so I had them build it, put it together. It's heavy, but it went up relatively easily. Um, and we got it in place, got it done. So I had them build it, took a whole bunch of pictures, and then I went to the engineers like, all right, yeah, I got this new shore that I designed, and we'll work on this. So we just tested it recently, and so it's later a 6-post. It's a 3-foot by 4-foot 6-post shore, and this is something like you had your parking garage. Let's just say you had
Be perfect.
you got 3 or 4 floors are on top of one floor, and so you got a tremendous amount of weight up top. It's like, holy crap! You put one of these in, and you're good to go. Right.
Yeah,
Now
would
we
you say 168,000 pounds?
168,000, and the post didn't fail. What
Right.
happens is the wedges and the sole plate just crushed and crushed and crushed, and wouldn't take any more load. That's like 168,000 pounds. Right.
And that's 30,000 more than their standard 2-post.
The best we had was 140, so it's about
Okay.
25.
Gotcha.
Most of the lace posts have failed at about 110, 120. So it's like 30,000 pounds, 35,000 pounds more. You know,
And that
which
is in the book, right? That's in the
uh,
new edition.
yes, it is. Yeah, it's in the book. Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah, we were. I mean, I was ecstatic with the test. I mean, this is great. I loved it. So yeah, we were very happy with that. So
So I have to tell a quick funny story from back in the, I guess it was probably, I don't know, it was right after the Trade Center. And got a call from my fire chief at the time. I was still the union president in Atlanta. He said, "Hey Dave, you know any guys from New York?" And I said, "Yeah, I know 2 really well." And I said, "I know some others, acquaintances, but I know 2 really well that I work with at FDIC." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Well, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl is bringing down a couple of firefighters to Atlanta to go to the Peach Bowl, and they're going to honor them, at the game, and we want to take them out to a couple of the bars in Buckhead, go have some dinner, so and so." He goes, "You think you could make it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." So I drive up to Buckhead to the Irish pub there, walk in, and who's sitting there but John O'Connell and Nicky Giordano, the only 2 New York guys that I really know well.
yeah.
So that was pretty crazy. And so you got to go and hang out at the Peach Bowl the next day, and
Well, that was a
think
wild time. That was a great time.
yeah, I think you might have done a little flirting with Miss Georgia.
Yes, it did.
So
I was I was on the sidelines with Miss Georgia, talking to her for a while, and then I guess the TV crews got a TV cameras too, because Kevin Williams, John, you need to turn around. Like, why? He goes, you guys are on the camera.
no
Like,
candy
really?
can.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
good
okay, yeah.
stuff.
What a nice girl she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other one was now did we just start calling you Johnny Collapse, or was that something that had been with you for a while, or was that an FDIC thing?
No, that came out of FDNY.
Okay.
For me teaching all the stuff. Yeah, they used to
Yeah.
call me Johnny
All
Collapse.
right. So we took that up at FDIC, and then of course I was there for your 50th birthday as you came down the steps of the Marriott about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I don't think you hit the ground, but I don't know why you didn't hit the ground because you had your cowboy boots on and you stepped on some ice or something, and you went down. And so we always say we were there the night Johnny collapsed.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem like it was but a couple years ago, but that was your 50th birthday, so that's been a
21
few
years ago.
a few years ago. So,
Oh, my Lord in heaven.
uh, unbelievable, unbelievable. Well, folks,
Yeah.
if you're into shoring, if you got a team, if you got a library at your station, you got to have emergency rescue shoring techniques. It is the standard manual. It's the Bible of all things shoring. The graphics are incredible, and we all know we like pictures. We need to see what we're going to do. Whether you're building models to train on in the station, or you're going out to do it, this is the book you've got to have. And John, it's been great catching up. It's always a blast to be with you, and looking forward to next time.
Always great to see you, Dave.
All right. So I'm David Rhodes, and this one is in the books.